Roofing company business owners, salespeople, the number one thing that will kill your business is bad production, bad customer service. No one wants to be known as a hack, bullshit roofer. And if you're watching this video, I'm gonna give you 10 rules that will save your business, get you 5-star reviews, and get you paid so you can run a profitable roofing company. And this from 20 years of making mistakes. I've always been a sales-oriented guy, but in order to go big, you got to follow the rules. Let's start with rule number 10. The number 10 rule is that your network is your net worth, and you're only as good as the quality of the crews that are in your network. Look, if you build it, they will come. That is the brand. That is the sales. If you go out there and focus on selling, I've never had a hard time finding good roofers. Why? Because good roofers are smart and they'll call you off of yard signs. If you're advertising on social media, they'll respond to your ads and say, do you have work? They'll hear about you and see you at the supply company. So I would say, number one thing, you can put ads on Craigslist looking for roofers. You can go to your local supply company and go to a bulletin board and say, seeking roofers, call this number. You can ask your distribution sales rep. A lot of times they're connected to the subcontractors and they can connect you to subs. But really, if you put yard signs in your jobs, you'll start getting calls, because don't be afraid to stop and talk to other roofing crews and just to introduce yourself. Let them know, hey, here's my card. If you ever want to do work, I got you. Let's sit down and talk someday. Go and recruit your own crews, because really, guys, like a good crew, when you get one, they should be able to show you pictures of work that they've done before. They should be able to provide you with references. They should be able to cover all the expense for either materials or labor of the project that they're on and get paid upon completion. Look, a good roofer knows that if the job's not done right, then you don't get paid. So it's about holding these crews accountable. And that's why going through these rules are so important, because a crew can treat your roofing job like a free-for-all. They can be disrespectful to the property, they can cut corners, and if you don't hold them accountable, it can be a shit show. So the number one thing is always have new crews to replace the bad ones. Always have a big network. And when you have a big Rolodex, you'll get high quality crews. Build the brand and they will come. Number 9 way that I'm going to judge a department of production is, how do you deal with problems? For one, you got to be the rock in a relationship. When the customer gets emotional, you have to remain calm, cool, and collected. That's one strategy. No matter what they say, make sure that you don't interrupt them. You can always make an agreement if you're agreeable. I understand completely. Maybe my roofers didn't take as much time and attention to your gutters as they should have. As a matter of fact, you're exactly right, Mr. Customer. A lot of times, telling this to the customer shows that you're listening. And I think with problem repairs, number one, answer the phone. You get a text message, you get a phone call, and there's a problem repair. Dude, don't wait to pick up the phone. That phone can feel like an 800-pound gorilla. But the quicker you address it, the quicker the customer feels heard. Number 2, let's say doing the problem repairs out of your control and the people hadn't showed up, the subs hadn't showed up. A lot of times I see salespeople, production management fail to communicate to the customer and say, hey, look, something came up, weather has changed our plans, we're not going to be able to get to it till later. And it's just being available for the customer and never giving up that truly makes them feel like they are heard. Now, if they don't feel heard, if they don't feel like you care, if they feel like you're just taking advantage of them, it makes it hard to collect the money. I truly want a 5-star review. That's the point of production. So I'm not judged how the beginning of the experience is, I'm judged at the end. That's why we have to get the quality control guy on site. There's an important piece of paper we're going to go into more details of called the statement of completion. And when you're handling problem repairs, if you're looking for handyman guys, dude, put ads out there, constantly be interviewing people. You can put handyman ads out on Indeed, constantly be looking for people who have these different kinds of skills. And like I said, just like with production, you're only as good as your crews. Problem repair crews can be different. So there is times where you have to hold money on your crews. There is time where you got to hold crews accountable. That's why you got to inspect their jobs before you write the money for payroll. And if you have problems with the crew, don't give them more jobs. Don't pay them for the jobs they have problems on. Then your problem repairs will get fixed. Number 8 thing that I judge a production department is, how do you handle other trades? Gutters with roofing is a common issue. Salespeople, they don't get a proper takeoff. They don't get a proper color selection. Oftentimes insurance companies only pay for a portion of the gutters. And in my 20-year history, dude, it's probably less than 20% of the jobs that the insurance companies actually paid for all the gutters up front. A lot of times you have to supplement for this. The reality is that you need a good diagram of what gutters that we're replacing. You need a good understanding of the downspouts. You need a color selected with the customer, and you need the salesperson to understand if you don't have these things accomplished, then you will hold up your pay. So a good production manager at the beginning of the job makes sure if a job has gutters that it has this takeoff, this drawing. Otherwise, he kicks the job back to the sales guy. He says, dude, go out there, get me the gutter takeoff, get me the colors, we'll convert it. If you don't do this now, you'll do it later, so let's do it up front. Because it's the way that you do one thing is the way that you do all things. I've always been a rule breaker, but when you break rules in production, dude, you don't collect your money because the gutters aren't finished. When it comes to like things like siding and other trades, I do believe sometimes you can benefit from using turnkey subs. These are subs that will go do the takeoff, manage the production, buy the materials, actually do the work. They may cost you 5 to 10% more. Oftentimes they have their own license and insurance. But doing all these other trades, it might be better for you to find turnkey solutions. Look, if you're doing a lot of different things in insurance restoration, I always recommend try and get as much money for all the other trades and just do the ones that you make money on. Like roofing has been the #1 thing I make money on. If I've got to do roof, gutters, and paint to get overhead and profit, those are pretty easy exterior trades. But once I have to start rebuilding the inside of someone's house, once I have to start doing detail stuff like window screens and bullshit, then it becomes things that hold my money up. So one thing I can tell you is get your money right in the beginning with proper takeoffs, proper color, and sometimes let customers keep money for other trades so that you can get money faster. The #7 rule, maybe the most important rule to the whole freaking thing, it's called the statement of completion. 99% of roofing companies don't use this form. In my 20 years experience, there's a certain handful of customers that make your life hell. Usually these are customers that have bad credit, they don't pay a lot up front, maybe they shop around and give you a lot of bids. I always tell you, the people that are the hardest in the beginning, they give you the hardest during the job, and they're the hardest to get the money from in the end. And so when you encounter some of these people, which is a percentage of the American public, you need to get your money right. #1 thing, statement of completion. I see this happen all the time. #1 complaint I got, roofing gutters. I've picked up $5,000 for the roof. It's a $20,000 roofing and gutter project. I'm done with the roof. Customer says, I'll pay you when I'm done with your gutters. You're not done with the job. So now they're holding $15,000 just so that they can get their gutters done. Look, this happens all the time to sales reps. When you're done with the roof, take the statement of completion. Let them know that they pay you by trade. This is the amount per trade. If you have a problem with areas that need to be punched out in the contract, it states that you can hold 10%. Here are the issues that you have problem with. That's where you write down the issues and you make them sign the contract. Because with difficult people, you'll go knock out these issues, then they'll come up with new issues, and if they know that you've made them sign off on it, sometimes it makes them really give you the money easier. I can tell you without a statement of completion, even with the pissed off customer where you've damaged properties and you have a lot of trades to finish, you don't have clarity in the bill. You don't have clarity that it's time to pay, that there is still material and labor bills that you have to compensate for. So get the statement of completion done. It's best done when you get the last nail done. We're gonna talk more in detail, but this probably is the most important rule. Statement of completion says that we're done. You have the right to hold 10%. Sign here. Now give me my money. If you don't have the cash, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or we got in-house financing. What do you prefer? Rule #6, never miss an opportunity to collect your check when the last nail is driven. We find the longer it takes for you to get to the customer and ask for the money after the last nail is driven, the more statistically hard it is to collect. The more the customer has punch-out issues. Why is that? Because you know what's funny, the customer is a little bit greedy and they also have neighbors. And when the job is done, maybe they're drinking beer and they're talking cooler conversation. The neighbor comes next door and says, oh, you see that bent drip edge? Oh, you see that ridge that's not done correctly? Oh, these door-to-door roofers, they did a bad job. And now all of a sudden, the customer that would have paid is not going to pay because the neighbor said something. When you don't show up to ask for your money, the customer thinks you don't need it. The other part about it is like, if something's not done on the list, let's say the roof, siding, gutters, and the roof is only 2/3 of the money, on the contract you have to determine, I get paid when the trade is finished. This is the amount per trade. And so timing it when the last nail is driven. How do we do that? We have communication within our system. Our customer care team, our automated text message through our app will communicate with the customer, communicate with the quality control guy, communicate with the sales rep, trigger a urgent red warning that this last nail's being driven, the check needs to be picked up. That's when our customer care honestly is going to reach out and say, hey, this is your balance, here it is by email. You got to give somebody a written invoice. A lot of times salespeople don't prepare for getting that last check. You should have your invoice printed out. You should have a way to create the invoice. You could deliver it by email, you could have it printed out, but when you're done, you deliver the invoice, you do it when the last nail is driven, you increase your statistical chance to not have a problem in collections. And when people pay, they start to justify instead of justify why they won't pay. Meaning, if they pay you, they'll start saying, I got a good job. If they don't pay you, they're gonna get greedy and they're gonna say, I got a bad job, fuck that guy, I don't wanna pay him. So ask for your money fast before they start keeping your money in their own pocket. Roofing business owners, if y'all been enjoying these rules, look, you need to download our free app, Roofing Redline, get a free trial, because sales cures all woes. With bad production, you're just gonna ruin your sales. So inside of Roofing Redline, it connects to other roofing project management tools so that sales and production can communicate. That is the most important overall rule to good production, is communication. You can't expect what you don't inspect, and in Roofing Redline, you got one tool to measure your roofs, estimate your roofs, get a digital signature, get signatures for forms like the statement of completion that we've talked about in this video, plus track your door-to-door reps, hold them accountable, keep a scoreboard, and gamify the production of sales. Look, all these other door-to-door apps for roofing don't have connection to the built jobs. You gotta sell, build, collect to get rich in roofing. So look, download Roofing Redline right now, get a free trial. This is my biggest contribution to the roofing industry ever. Now to the next rule. The number 5 rule is that quality control, a job site manager separate from the Spanish-speaking crews, is a quintessential perfect part to production that a lot of people miss. Salespeople are not good at production, so having a quality control guy, typically in the past I billed a job $200 per project, hired someone to manage the project, and what does that project manager do? He can manage up to 3 projects. He starts by checking the job before we build, making sure that all the material is there, the safety equipment's there. When the crew comes out, we set the tone with how we want the job set up, how we want the tear-off done, and we let them know about our safety standard up front. We have a checklist. I'll be real with you, this checklist changed the game, and we have an app, Roofing Redline. The pictures are able to upload into the file, and so when you're using technology with a checklist, you can hold crews accountable, and even one guy can manage 3 jobs at a time. Now, one of the mistakes quality control guys make, you got to be careful, just like in sales, is saying too much. You always want to agree with the customer, but you want to protect the house. You don't want to go on and on about basically giving away things, for instance, just to make the customer happy. There's many times where the customer is going to lean on you, and they're going to be looking for excuses not to pay because of a greed factor. And so quality control has to always respect the customer, always understand that the customer is right, but your job is to protect the house. The customer can be right, but they still have to pay. And that contract states that if we're done and it's up to our standard, they owe the money. And even if there's a problem, they can only hold 10%. So this quality control relationship, when the customer sees a good salesman do this job, man, they feel like they really like their sales guy. Our best guy, Mike Herrera, I don't have to really have quality control with. He only uses quality control to run his materials down, but he gets 5-star reviews because he does this himself. The real TRD rep, Sell, Build, Collect, recognizes that when you build and demonstrate quality control is your best chance to get referrals. You're like Mike, you become the TRD. You don't need someone else to do your job. But quality control and production, training your team, maybe putting a $200 budget, having a checklist, using pictures to verify it, and then not paying on jobs unless the protocols follow. That's important of 5-star production. Rule number 4, need need to have proper customer care communication. We have a separate department at RCA. As soon as the job is converted, a customer service representative reach out. We set the expectations of the build, we talk about the payment terms, but we also build a relationship. And this customer may have an issue with their sales rep or an issue with the job, and because of this relationship with the customer care rep, we find they come to us instead of make complaints. We believe that it's actually the automated communication in our system that we've added to let the customer know when their material's ordered, when they're delivered, when their expectation window of doing their project is. We tried forever to do it without a calendar, but now we set the date with proper expectations, that weather could change, that jobs could take longer. This is the window that we're shooting for, but here is the date that is the specific date. I just want you to know that it's communication throughout this cycle. It's follow up with the customers about the payment terms. It's the biggest mistake. See, one of the rules we'll talk about later is to stay in front of the money. So our customer care team lets them know, you got to pay 50% before we start. When we get the materials there, right before we're going to start the job, we call them. We say, hey, we're getting started. This is what's going down. This is what you can expect. It's going to be loud. Have your money ready, because once we start, you owe another 25%. The relationship is solidified. They're happier. They get our money ready. Then the job is about to get finished. This is when the customer care team lets them know, hey, our quality control guy is going to be coming out there with a statement of completion. Be ready. Have your last check ready. This is the amount. And so the customer care team is really protecting the house, talking about money and making sure that people are getting taken care of. But also customer care communicates with the punch out, follow-ups, and holds salespeople accountable. And what you need to have is this internal team that's trained like my people. Rule number 3, do not start a project without a proper pre-cap. A pre-cap is a breakdown of how much you're getting individually per trade. We put it into a CRM. We like to use a Job Nimbus, and we put into our budget how much we're getting for the roof, how much we're getting for the siding, how much we're getting for the gutters, what the material costs are, the work order that's complete. This is where a lot of salespeople fail. They never do work orders and they don't understand the components of a roof. Production, guys, you can have your salespeople put the work orders together, but your job is to hold them accountable. So at our RCA, we have a team and there's a verification person, and they make sure that the jobs have the pre-cap done correctly, that our budget is correct for material, for labor. A lot of times salespeople, they underestimate how much the material or labor should cost. And a lot of times they don't break down by trade how much you're gonna get for each item. And as a company, this is so important. At scale, a lot of times there's problems because you don't know how much profits in each trade. You don't know how much you're getting for each trade. You don't know how much is in each job. The number one thing you're supposed to look at in a pre-cap is the overall gross profit margin. In no time ever are you supposed to start a project if you're making less than 40% profit. See, our business model is that we supplement insurance companies, or we sell retail at a high enough price that we start over 45% gross margin. Even in tougher markets in the South at 40%, what we want to do, even when we roof, there's going to be issues, there's going to be changes. We want to start high so we end acceptable. And so any job that doesn't have the right margin, supplement before you build. Any job that doesn't have the right margin, go ask for a change order. And so a proper pre-cap helps you understand what jobs you need to kick back, ask for more money on. And whenever I've seen companies fail at this, they're doing big complicated projects, they're paying their sales guys, and they don't know how much the jobs are going to cost. The jobs then tank, they still owe the sales guys. It can kill a whole company. If you don't do proper pre-caps, you literally can go out of business. You have to know what it's going to cost, and you have to track the variance of what it actually costs and look to improve staying on budget. That's why you need a proper pre-cap. Rule number 2, it starts with the contract. You're a roofing contractor. So a proper contract, of course, has clear manufacturer, clear color. A lot of times we get a signature. I don't know how many Karens I've done a roof for, and the shade wasn't what they expected. They didn't like the color of their roof, and next thing I know, I'm trying to sell this lady on accepting the color that's halfway installed on her roof. Look, A proper contract starts with a clear dollar amount. That's the biggest mistake that I see, especially with insurance restoration contractors. They put insurance allowance. They use a contingency agreement as their contract. Dude, in most states, if you don't have a clear dollar amount on your contract, you don't have a valid contract. So make sure that your contract follows all the rules of your state. Here in Florida, we got so many rules, our contract's multiple pages, but it's legit. And a proper contract has every dollar amount per trade. If you're doing roofs, I want the dollar amount for the roofs. If you're doing gutter, I want the dollar amount for the gutters. And I want it broke down so that I completely understand. And one of the most important things when you're explaining a contract is the payment terms. For us, 50% down, 25% once we start, and they owe us immediately when we're finished, regardless of the depreciation. And if they don't have money for depreciation, we finance or we offer maybe to pay with a credit card. But the whole point is make sure your payment terms are correct. Make sure that your collections terms are correct. Make sure the dollar amount's on there. One of the big mistakes I see is a dollar amount, 15,000 roof gutters, but you didn't put plus insurance supplements. So you go back and you get 22,000 from the insurance company, and now the customer wants to keep the check. Put plus insurance supplements and the approved RCV number and have clear dollar amounts of what you're going to collect. Clear dollar amounts of each trade and clear of what manufacturer and what color is, and that's the key to a proper contract. We got a drum roll here for the number one rule to save your roofing business. Number one rule, stay in front of the money. I used to do jobs with no money down because that's how the people in Texas do it. It's the easiest way to sell a job. Hey, don't pay me until we get started. Don't pay me until you're happy. And I will tell you that's the wrong way to do it because you're in front of the money. If you have a problem, you've already invested into material and labor, and now not only do you not pick up your profit, do you not pick up the money you owe, but you go in the hole to service somebody. And if you come across somebody that really holds you accountable to some silly little issue and gives you $0, these type of issues can tank your company. So number one thing, take half down to start projects. And it's crazy if you can't take half down, make sure that when you deliver the materials that you're getting at least half down. Our best practice is to get, whether you're in an insurance market, hail, the first check plus the insurance deductible, or get 50% down. You can always ask for the money. They can always tell you no. And roofing salesmen are such giveaway artists, they get in a habit of just setting the customer up with, oh, it's gonna be free. Oh, you don't have to pay. You know what you're doing? You're training your customer to fuck you out of the final check. And what you gotta do is you gotta let them know. 50% down, 75% upon commencement, and that you expect to be paid in full when the last nail is driven, regardless of the depreciation. Now, maybe if you're in insurance restoration, you said you can pay me when you get the insurance check. What we do is explain depreciation a lot different. We say, this is how it works. Step one, you sign the statement of completion. It says the work is completed. You sign this piece of paper. Step two, you pay your roofer in full. You pay the work in full. Step number two. Step number three, you turn in your paid in full invoice and your certificate of completion to receive the depreciation. And a lot of customers are like, okay, great, let me handle my responsibility. Now, some people are like, but Lee, I don't have the money. This is where we offer a credit card term or offer in-house financing. You might say, Lee, what about people with bad credit? We have low credit score options where they can use like tax liens and different options for low credit. We have different programs. Worst case scenario, we go through all these options, they're denied on everything. Well, at least I know building that project that the customer has bad credit and that as soon as they get the check, I better get my money. And I've asked for my money so much that I've trained the customer to pay us when I'm finished. I would say the number one rule, I'm doing work for a company worth $400 million a year in sales. And their business model is just to have other roofers do their commercial jobs. And the way they stay in front of the money is they have me complete $1 million project and pay for the material and labor. Guess what happens if there's a problem on that contract? I don't get paid until the project is fixed to their standard. Now, I can get paid if the job is done correctly. I can get paid when everything is signed off on. And since I do good production, I don't mind taking that project. But if I had my whole book of business, a residential book of business like that, then I would be having residential customers who were trying to negotiate money and getting ahead of me on the money. And naturally, customers understand. If you've already invested material and labor and they owe you a shitload of money and they drag you, then maybe you'll settle for pennies on the dollar later on. And there's literally evil people in the world that only care about themselves that will take your money because they feel like they deserve it more. So if you stay in front of the money, here's the worst case scenario. 50% down, or you get first check and the deductible, and basically you haven't ordered the materials, but you pretty much pay for the materials and labor. Next, you get the 25% before you start the project. This to me, like as the insurance companies in Florida went out of business, insurance companies started taking 90 days, 120 days to pay the depreciation. Some of my money, millions, was held up in like long term because insurance companies went out of business. It's like, no, when we're done, we gotta be paid. In 30 days, if you haven't paid, a lien goes on your home. And so if you don't get that 75%, well, if the customer doesn't pay you, you don't have enough money to pay for your material and labor bill. So the goal is to cash flow each job, cash flow each book of business. I used to always want to basically use the credit line as much as possible, and I still do. But I use the credit line as much as possible while I follow the rules of engagement and stay in front of the money. Look, at each stage of the game, if I didn't add rules and change my discipline to these rules, I would have been put out of business. From 1 million to 10 million, your business breaks. From 10 million to 20 million, your business breaks. From 20 million to 40 million, your business breaks. From 40 million to 100 million. If you don't follow these rules, all you're doing is blowing up bad production, unprofitable jobs, and it's only through failure. It's only through doing bad work. It's only through what I call roofing lessons. I remember a project we did in commercial production. It's tough, and I used the wrong sub. Ended up 2.3 million, literally making zero money on the job. I worked for years for free, and I just want y'all to know it was a lesson to stay in front of the money, to follow these rules. And if you're watching this right now, these are the things that you got to do to see the profit. What you got to do to see the sales is you got to knock more doors. You got to be disciplined to hardcore door-to-door. If you want to scale your sales team, you want to double your door-to-door sales team like me, for the first time ever, I've got something for free. It's a tool. It's changed my business. I've always complained about spending so much money. Just recently, we eliminated another app, saved another $5,000. But it's one tool, your quoting tool, your door-to-door tool, your roof measurement tool, your digital signature tool. It's got your hail and wind history maps. Literally, I can see if I'm in the zone, what the closest storm date is. I can digitally sign. I can connect to my projects. Now look at this app and I see it's what we were looking for. A way to take a bartender, a waiter, an 18-year-old kid, teach them how to be a roofing salesman without literally days just going from nothing to potentially $1 million producer. So if you want free access to this, go to roofingredline.com. We're going to put the comments below. Hey, comment below any questions you have about scaling. If you like this new video style, it was more educational. It was more geared toward roofing business owners. That's who I'm really, really excited to help. My ideal client does about $2 million a year. He's really hungry to get to 10 million and beyond. He loves personal development, wants to build a brand on social media, wants to be hardcore door to door. If you're stagnant in growth, you're getting stuck in the grunt work, you're getting stuck doing all the tasks, you're my perfect guy. We implement our recruiting system. We implement our successful roofing sales system. Your business blows up. It starts with this free tool. Roofing Redline, get free access. Comment below any questions you have. These are the 10 rules of good production so that you can stay in business. Look forward to helping y'all out.